Get out. You're a disappointment to this family. Dad's voice boomed through our family home, rattling the photographs on the walls, smiling faces of successful siblings and cousins, their achievements meticulously documented while my own story remained conspicuously absent. I stood in the doorway of my childhood home, a light drizzle falling on an unseasonably cold October evening. Mom sat at the dining table, dabbing her eyes with an embroidered napkin, while my father's face had reached that particular shade of purple reserved for his greatest moments of outrage. The catalyst for this final explosion? I'd just declined for the third time their attempts to get me a proper job at Global Dynamics, the tech corporation where they both worked as middle management. The position they'd arranged, through connections and favors, was a junior analyst role, several steps below my actual qualifications. They only knew. 28 years old, living in that tiny apartment, doing God knows what with your time. Dad continued, his tie askew from the force of his gesticulation. Your sister's a senior VP, your brother's making partner at his firm, and you're just a disappointment? I supplied calmly, adjusting my unremarkable off-the-rack suit. Failure. Please, Dad, don't hold back now. Mom's sob grew louder. We just want what's best for you, David. This phase of yours, whatever you're doing. What I was doing. I almost laughed. While they'd been lamenting my apparent lack of direction, I'd been orchestrating one of the largest silent acquisitions in corporate history. Summit Enterprises, my private investment firm, had spent the last 3 years quietly accumulating shares in Global Dynamics through a labyrinth of shell companies and private holdings. Yesterday we'd crossed the threshold. Summit now owned 51% of Global Dynamics shares. The board meeting scheduled for tomorrow would announce the new ownership structure and the complete reorganization of the company's leadership. But my parents didn't know that. They didn't know that their mysterious new CEO, brought in 6 months ago by the board, was actually my choice. They didn't know that their recent promotions, the ones they'd been so proud of, were part of my strategy to position them exactly where they needed to be for tomorrow's announcement. I've arranged another interview at Global, Dad was saying, his voice dropping into that condescending tone I'd grown to despise. Jim in HR owes me a favor. Just wear a proper suit this time, something that doesn't look like it came from a department store. I glanced down at my cheap suit, a bespoke Tom Ford that cost more than his car, deliberately chosen to look unremarkable. Everything about my appearance had been carefully crafted to maintain my cover. The modest apartment, one of 50 properties I owned in the city, the used Toyota, sitting next to my collection of supercars in a private garage, the basic smartphone, while my real phone managed a billion-dollar empire. That won't be necessary, I said quietly. I actually have a meeting at Global Dynamics tomorrow morning. Dad's eyes lit up with desperate hope. You're finally seeing sense? The interview. Not an interview, I corrected him. A board meeting. Board. Mom's confusion was evident. But that's impossible. Tomorrow's meeting is closed. Only senior executives and major shareholders. Exactly. I turned toward the door, pausing just long enough to savor their bewildered expressions. Oh, and Dad? About that proper suit comment. This one cost more than your annual salary. I just didn't want to make you uncomfortable. The door closed on their stunned faces. Through the window, I could see them frozen in their familiar poses. Dad standing with his mouth open, Mom clutching her napkin, both trying to process words that didn't fit their carefully constructed narrative of their failure son. My phone buzzed as I got into my waiting car. Not the Toyota, but the Bentley I reserved for special occasions. Tomorrow would certainly qualify. Everything's ready for tomorrow, Mycio texted. The legal team has finalized the restructuring documents. Should I assume your parents don't know yet? They will tomorrow, I replied, watching my childhood home disappear in the rearview mirror. How's the mood at the office? Your parents spent all day bragging about how they're trying to help their struggling son get an entry-level position. The irony is delicious. I smiled, remembering every family dinner spent listening to their disappointed sighs, every holiday enduring comparisons to more successful relatives, every conversation that ended with thinly veiled suggestions about getting a real job. Tomorrow everything would change. Tomorrow they would learn that their son didn't need their help getting a job at Global Dynamics, because he owned it. The next morning, Global Dynamics headquarters buzzed with nervous energy. Employees whispered about the emergency board meeting, about rumors of major changes coming. My parents, unaware they were about to become characters in their own cautionary tale, strode through the lobby with their usual air of middle management importance. I watched from the executive elevator, the one they'd never been allowed to use, as they made their way to the regular staff entrance. Mom was wearing her power suit, the one she reserved for important occasions. Dad had on his lucky tie, probably hoping to catch the eye of someone important during the day's events. If only they knew just how important. "They're all here," Monsieur Sarachin murmured beside me. "Full board, major shareholders, executive team. And of course your parents, though they're not supposed to be in the main meeting." "Oh, they'll be there," I said, straightening my actual power suit, a bespoke brioni that cost more than their combined annual salaries. "Make sure they're called in right as we start." The executive floor was a study in controlled chaos. Board members and executives hurried around, clutching folders and whispering urgently. None of them knew the full story yet. Only that Summit Enterprises had acquired a controlling interest, and that the mysterious chairman would be revealing himself today. I stepped into my private office, hidden behind the boardroom. Through one-way glass I could see the room filling up. My parents were being ushered in, looking confused but pleased at their unexpected inclusion in such a high-level meeting. "Look at them," Emma, my younger sister, said from the doorway. Unlike our parents, she'd known about my success from the beginning. Mom's already planning how to brag about this at her next book club meeting. Not quite the story she's expecting to tell, I smiled, checking my watch. "Ready for the show?" Emma's grin was wickedly delighted. "I've been ready for 5 years." The boardroom settled as Sarachin took her place at the head of the table. My parents sat near the back, trying to look like they belonged. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sarah began, "as you know, Summit Enterprises has acquired a controlling interest in Global Dynamics. Today you'll meet Summit's chairman and learn about our new direction." Dad leaned over to Mom, whispering something that probably included the words hostile takeover and corporate raiders. They'd always feared change, always clung to their outdated ideas of corporate success. "Before we begin," Sarah continued, "I want to acknowledge some of our long-term employees who have been crucial to Global Dynamics operations. Richard and Patricia Moore, please stand." My parents rose, beaming with pride. Dad straightened his lucky tie. "The Moores have been with us for 25 years, Sarah said. They've recently expressed concerns about their son's career choices, even trying to secure him an entry-level position here." Nervous laughter rippled through the room. Mom's smile faltered slightly. "What makes this particularly interesting," Sarah continued, her voice taking on an edge of amused irony, "is that their son is actually—" The private office door opened. I stepped into the boardroom. "Our new chairman," I finished for her. The silence was absolute. Dad's lucky tie seemed to be choking him. Mom's power suit suddenly looked like a child's costume. "Hello, Mom, Dad," I said, walking to the head of the table. "Please keep standing. We have a lot to discuss about my career choices." Their faces had passed white and moved into a sort of grayish green. Around them, board members and executives were beginning to understand the delicious drama unfolding before them. "As of 9 a.m. this morning," I continued, "Summit Enterprises owns 51% of Global Dynamics shares. We'll be implementing comprehensive changes to modernize operations, streamline management, and bring this company into the current century." I opened the folder in front of me, enjoying the way Dad's eyes followed my movements like a man watching a cobra dance. "Now, about that entry-level position you were so keen on arranging. The board packet in front of you outlines our restructuring plan," I continued, watching my parents slowly sink back into their chairs. "You'll notice significant changes to the management structure, particularly in outdated middle management positions that have, shall we say, resisted innovation." Dad's hands trembled as he opened the folder. Mom hadn't moved since I entered, her perfectly maintained facade cracking like old paint. "But before we discuss the company's future," I said, leaning forward, "let's talk about last night's family dinner. I believe you called me a disappointment? Told me to get a real job?" The boardroom was silent except for Emma's poorly concealed snort of laughter. Every eye darted between me and my parents, drinking in the corporate theater playing out before them. "David," Mom finally managed, her voice barely a whisper. We didn't know. Clearly, I cut her off. You didn't know that while you were lamenting my tiny apartment, I was living in the penthouse of a building I own. You didn't know that while you mocked my used Toyota, I was building one of the largest private investment firms in the country. You didn't know that every time you compared me to my successful cousins, I was closing deals bigger than their entire companies. Dad found his voice, though it cracked like old glass. Why didn't you tell us? Tell you. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Like when I tried to explain my first venture capital fund, and you interrupted to brag about cousin James making junior partner. Or when I attempted to discuss my investment strategy, and Mom changed the subject to Sandra's new position at that failing startup. I pulled up the company's financial projections on the wall screen. Speaking of failing, let's discuss Global Dynamics' performance under your generation's leadership. Market share down 30%. Innovation stagnant. Stock price artificially maintained by my quiet acquisition of shares. Now see here, Dad started, a flash of his old authority emerging. You can't just... Can't what, Dad? Succeed beyond your narrow definition of success? Build something bigger than your limited imagination could grasp? Or do you mean I can't fire you? Because actually, I can do all of those things. Sarah Chin slid 2 envelopes across the table. Your retirement packages, she explained professionally. Quite generous, considering the company's performance under your supervision. Mom's hands shook as she reached for the envelope. But our positions, our standing in the company, were maintained solely because I wanted you exactly where you are for this moment, I finished. Every promotion you've received in the past year, every lucky break. All orchestrated to keep you comfortable until today. The reality of their situation seemed to finally hit them. Every dismissive comment, every condescending piece of advice, every missed opportunity to simply listen to their son, it all led to this moment. The severance is $5 million each, I added, watching their eyes widen. Consider it hazard pay for enduring decades of outdated management philosophy. Your country club membership will be maintained. Your social status, such as it is, won't suffer. Though I imagine the story of how your disappointment son turned out will make for interesting conversation at your next garden party, Mom. Emma stepped forward, placing a final document on the table. And this is the deed to your house, now owned by Summit Enterprises. Don't worry, you can keep living there. Consider it rent-free accommodation from your struggling son. The board members were doing poor jobs of hiding their smirks. Several were already updating their LinkedIn profiles, recognizing which way the corporate winds were blowing. One more thing, I said, standing to signal the end of this particular family drama. About that entry-level position you were so eager to arrange? The salary would have been roughly what I make in interest every hour. But thank you for your concern about my career prospects. I buttoned my jacket, every inch the chairman they never thought I could be. The press conference announcing the changes will be in an hour. You're welcome to stay and watch, or you can take the rest of the day to process your new reality. Either way, your key cards will stop working at 5 p.m. Walking toward the door, I paused for one final twist of the knife. Oh, and about Sunday dinner this week? I'm afraid I'll have to cancel. I have a company to run. A real job, as you might say. The boardroom door closed on their stunned faces, leaving them sitting in the wreckage of their assumptions, surrounded by the evidence of their greatest parental failure, which had somehow become their son's greatest success. My phone buzzed with a message from Emma. Worth every second of waiting. Though I think Mom's going to need a new power suit. This one seems to have shrunk along with her ego. I smiled, stepping into my private elevator. Sometimes the best revenge isn't proving people wrong. It's succeeding so spectacularly that their opinions become irrelevant footnotes in your success story. The elevator doors closed on my past, opening onto my future. Above, my parents sat in a boardroom that no longer belonged to their world, finally understanding that their disappointment son had outgrown not just their expectations, but their entire definition of success. And somewhere in the city, a used Toyota sat in front of an unremarkable apartment, props in a play that had just reached its perfect final act. 1 year later, I sat in my office reviewing Global Dynamics' latest quarterly report. Our stock had doubled. Innovation was thriving. The old guard had been replaced with forward-thinking leaders who understood the modern business landscape. My parents, they'd adjusted somewhat. Mom now proudly tells her friends that she always knew I had potential. Dad occasionally asks for investment advice, though he still can't quite meet my eyes when we discuss business. Emma runs our West Coast operations, proving that at least one of us had followed the family business path, just not the way our parents expected. The photograph on my desk isn't the formal family portrait anymore. Instead, it's a news clipping from the day of the takeover, capturing the exact moment my parents realized their disappointment son had become their boss. Sometimes success isn't just about proving people wrong. It's about rewriting the entire story they thought they knew about you. And sometimes, the best revenge is simply letting them live with the knowledge that they never really knew you at all.
The oak dining table where I had spent countless childhood dinners now felt like an interrogation spot. My mother's voice cut through the air, sharp and decisive. "The lake house belongs to Marcus now. Your father and I have decided." I stared at her, my birthday cake sitting untouched between us. 35 candles flickered mockingly, their warm glow at odds with the cold announcement that had just shattered my evening. But I struggled to keep my voice steady. Grandpa promised that house to me. We talked about it every summer. I stayed with him. You know how much it means to me. The lake house had been my sanctuary growing up. While my parents focused on grooming Marcus for his destined role in the family business, I found solace in the quiet weekends with Grandpa Thomas. He taught me everything, from reading financial statements to understanding market trends, all while sitting on that old dock, fishing rods in hand. My father cleared his throat, straightening his ever-present tie. "Olivia, be reasonable. Marcus needs a proper family home now that he's made senior vice president at Turner Corp. You can't even afford the property taxes on a place like that." The familiar sting of their dismissal burned in my chest. In their eyes, my role as founder of a tech startup meant nothing compared to Marcus's corporate climb. Never mind that I had built Sterling Industries from the ground up, working countless nights while living on ramen noodles. To them, anything outside the traditional business world was just playing entrepreneur. "I can afford it," I said quietly. "Sterling Industries is doing well." My mother's laugh held that particular note of condescension she had perfected over the years. "Darling, running a little software company from your apartment isn't the same as real business. Marcus needs this house to entertain clients, to build connections." Marcus, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke up. "Come on, Liv. You know this makes sense. Turner Corp is expanding rapidly. We're about to close the biggest deal in company history. I need a place that reflects my position." I looked at my brother, remembering the countless times he had borrowed money from me during college, promising to pay it back once he made it big. Those loans remained unpaid, conveniently forgotten like so many other promises. "When did Grandpa change his will?" I asked, though I already suspected the answer. My father shifted uncomfortably. "The paperwork was finalized last month. Your grandfather's condition has been deteriorating. We simply helped him make the sensible choice." "You mean you pressured him while he was ill?" The words came out sharper than I intended. "Did you even tell him about Sterling's success? About the contracts we secured?" "What success?" Marcus scoffed. "Last I checked, you were still working out of that tiny office downtown. Meanwhile, Turner Corp just acquired 3 major competitors." I bit back a retort. They didn't know, couldn't know, that Sterling Industries now occupied the entire top floor of that tiny office building, or that we had recently developed a revolutionary supply chain management system that was quietly transforming the industry. "The house is Marcus's now," my mother said with finality. "We're having a housewarming party next weekend. You should come, Olivia. Network a little. Maybe Marcus can help you find a real job." I stood up, my untouched birthday cake a fitting metaphor for this entire evening. "Thank you for dinner. I should go." "Don't be dramatic," my father sighed. "We're trying to help you. This startup phase of yours needs to end sometime." I gathered my coat, fighting to keep my composure. "Phase, I spent 7 years building Sterling Industries. But you've never once asked about it, have you? Never wondered why I work such long hours or why I travel so much?" "Playing with computers isn't a career," my mother dismissed. "Marcus is handling billion-dollar acquisitions. That's real business." I paused at the door, looking back at my family gathered around that oak table. They looked so certain, so convinced of their own superiority. "You know what's funny? You're so focused on Marcus's success that you've never bothered to look beyond the surface of mine." "What's that supposed to mean?" Marcus asked, but I was already walking out. In my car, I finally let out the breath I'd been holding. My phone buzzed. A message from my COO, James. "Turner Corp just submitted their proposal. You were right. They're desperate to implement our system before the merger." I smiled despite myself. Turner Corp, my brother's precious company, had been pursuing a partnership with Sterling for months, though they didn't know I owned it. We operated through subsidiaries and shell corporations, our true ownership structure hidden behind layers of privacy protection. I typed back, "Schedule the meeting for next week. Let's see how desperate they really are." The next few days passed in a blur of meetings and strategy sessions. Sterling's management system had become the industry standard, and Turner Corp needed to complete their upcoming merger. Without our technology, their entire expansion plan would collapse. I received daily updates about the lake house. Marcus had already moved in, filling Grandpa's peaceful retreat with elaborate furniture and corporate art. The dock where I had learned about business and life was being transformed into an entertainment deck. Friday morning, I sat in my office reviewing the final contract when James knocked on my door. "Turner Corp's representatives are here, including your brother." I straightened my jacket, a simple but expertly tailored piece that cost more than Marcus's entire wardrobe. Time to welcome them to the real business world. The conference room fell silent as I walked in. Marcus sat at the table, surrounded by Turner Corp executives, his expression changing from bored to shocked as he recognized me. "Olivia? What are you doing here? This is a private meeting." I know. I took my seat at the head of the table. I'm exactly where I should be. Turner Corp's CEO, Michael Turner himself, looked between us in confusion. "You two know each other." "She's my sister," Marcus said quickly. "But I don't understand. We're here to meet with Sterling Industries leadership." "You are." I opened the contract in front of me. "I'm Olivia Sterling, founder and CEO of Sterling Industries." I enjoyed watching the color drain from Marcus's face. "Though you might know us better by our subsidiary names, we provide the technology that runs 90% of global supply chains." Michael Turner's eyes widened with recognition. The Sterling system was legendary in the industry. Their recent merger plans hinged entirely on implementing our technology. "This is impossible," Marcus stuttered. "You run a small software company, a startup." "No, Marcus. I run a multi-billion-dollar technology empire, one that your company desperately needs to partner with." I slid the contract across the table. "Shall we discuss terms?" The room remained silent as the implications sank in. My brother, who had just taken possession of my grandfather's house because I couldn't afford it, now sat across from me, needing my signature on a $100 million contract. "Why didn't you tell us?" he finally managed. "You never asked." I opened my laptop, pulling up the presentation. "Now let's talk about how Sterling Industries can help Turner Corp streamline its acquisition process." After all, I smiled, that's what real business is about, isn't it? The meeting lasted 3 hours. I watched as Marcus struggled to maintain his composure, while Michael Turner and the other executives practically fell over themselves trying to secure Sterling Industries' partnership. Every time Marcus attempted to assert his position as Senior VP, I simply pulled up another slide showing exactly how dependent their merger plans were on our technology. "These terms seem rather steep," Marcus finally said, his voice strained as he looked at the contract. "Surely there's room for negotiation, given our family connection." I raised an eyebrow. "Family connection? You mean like the connection to Grandpa's lake house?" Michael Turner's head snapped up. "Is this something we should know about?" "No," Marcus said quickly. "Personal matters. Not relevant to business." "Everything's relevant in business, Marcus. You taught me that, remember?" I turned to Michael. "The lake house, Mr. Turner, was my grandfather's property, a place where I spent years learning about business and finance. It was promised to me, but my family recently decided my brother was more deserving." Michael's expression darkened as he looked at Marcus. Everyone in the industry knew Michael's own story, how he built his first company from nothing, how he valued self-made success over inherited privilege. "The terms stand as they are," I continued. "Sterling's system is essential for your merger. Without it, you'll lose at least 6 months restructuring your entire integration plan." Can Turner Corp afford that delay? The answer was written all over their faces. They couldn't. After the meeting, Marcus tried to corner me in the hallway. Olivia, wait. We need to talk about this. About what? I stopped, turning to face him. About how you let them take away my inheritance? Or about how you need my help to save your biggest career move? You don't understand. This merger is everything. My whole future at Turner Corp depends on it. His voice dropped to a whisper. Please, as your brother, I'm asking you to be reasonable about the terms. I laughed. Reasonable? Like you were reasonable about the lake house? Tell me, Marcus, have you already redecorated Grandpa's study? Turned it into a home theater, maybe? He had the grace to look uncomfortable. The house needed updating. It was stuck in the past, just like your attitude right now. My attitude? I stepped closer, keeping my voice low but intense. You and our parents spent years dismissing my work, treating me like I was playing at business. Not once did you bother to ask what Sterling Industries actually does. Not once did you show any interest in my success. I didn't know. No, you didn't. Because you didn't care to know, I straightened my jacket. The contract terms are final. Take them or leave them. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a company to run. I was halfway to my office when my phone rang. Mom. How dare you ambush your brother like this? She hissed without preamble. Marcus just called us. He's devastated. Devastated that his little startup sister runs the company he needs, or devastated that he can't bully me into better terms. This isn't like you, Olivia. Where's the sweet girl who always looked up to her brother? She grew up, Mom, built a billion-dollar company while you were all too busy praising Marcus's corporate climb to notice. We're your family. No, I cut her off. You're people who share my DNA but never shared my dreams. You didn't believe in me, so I stopped needing you to. That evening, I drove out to the lake house. Marcus wasn't there, probably still at Turner Corp trying to salvage his reputation. I stood on the dock, remembering all the summers with Grandpa. The water was calm, reflecting the sunset just like it used to when he taught me about market trends and business ethics. My phone buzzed. A message from the nursing home where Grandpa now lived. Mr. Thomas is asking for you. He's having a lucid day. I found him sitting in his usual chair, gazing out the window. His face lit up when he saw me. There's my girl, he said, his voice weaker than I remembered but still warm. I heard you finally showed them what you built. I sat beside him, taking his frail hand. You knew about Sterling? He chuckled. Of course I knew. I've been following your success since the beginning. That supply chain system of yours. Brilliant, just like I always knew you'd be. Tears pricked at my eyes. They took the lake house, Grandpa. Made you sign it over to Marcus. Did they? His eyes twinkled. Check the deed, sweetheart, really check it. The next morning, I had my lawyers pull the property records. What they found made me laugh out loud. The lake house deed my parents had pressured Grandpa to sign. It transferred ownership to a small LLC, an LLC that had been registered to Sterling Industries 5 years ago. Grandpa had outplayed them all. I drove straight to my parents' house. They were having breakfast when I walked in, Marcus with them, probably planning their next move. The lake house, I said, dropping the property records on the table. Grandpa transferred it to an LLC, my LLC. Mom's coffee cup clattered against its saucer. What? He set it up years ago, knowing you might try something like this. The house legally belongs to me. Has for years. Marcus jumped up. That's impossible. Dad's lawyers checked everything. Your lawyers checked what they could see. But Grandpa learned about shell companies from me, remember? All those summers you thought we were just fishing. My father's face had turned an interesting shade of red. You can't do this to your brother. He needs that house for his position. His position. I pulled out my phone, pulling up Sterling's latest stock valuation. You mean his position at a company that's now dependent on my technology? That position. I showed them the screen. Their faces went pale as they saw the numbers. Billions in revenue, market dominance, global reach. Now, I continued, about that contract with Turner Corp, I've reconsidered the terms. Marcus looked up hopefully. They just got steeper. And the house? I think I'll keep it exactly as it is. A reminder of where real success comes from. I turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Mom, that sweet girl who looked up to her brother. She didn't disappear. She just finally realized her own worth. 2 months later, I sat on the old dock, laptop open to the latest Sterling earnings report. The Turner Corp deal had gone through, on my terms. Marcus had been reassigned to a smaller division after the merger, his golden boy status tarnished by his failure to secure better terms from his own sister. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Family dinner on Sunday. We should talk." I looked out at the lake, remembering all the lessons Grandpa had taught me here. Success wasn't about proving others wrong. It was about proving yourself right. But sometimes, just sometimes, you got to do both. I typed back, "Can't make it. Board meeting at Sterling. But you're welcome to stop by the lake house, if you can afford the drive." Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about rising so far above those who doubted you that they can't help but look up and wonder how they missed your light. 1 year later, I stood in Grandpa's study at the lake house, now restored to exactly how he had kept it. His old fishing rod still hung on the wall, and his worn leather chair sat behind the desk where he taught me about business ethics and market analysis. The merger between Turner Corp and Sterling Industries had transformed both companies. Our technology had streamlined their operations beyond even their optimistic projections. Marcus had eventually found his footing in a smaller regional office, humbled but perhaps better for it. My parents had tried to mend fences several times, each attempt tinged with a newfound respect they couldn't quite hide. Last month, Mom had even asked me to speak at her women's business luncheon about building a technology empire. I politely declined. Instead, I channeled my energy into creating the Thomas Sterling Foundation, named after Grandpa. We provided funding and mentorship to young entrepreneurs who, like me, had visions others couldn't see. The foundation's headquarters, a small office building downtown, right where my family once mocked my tiny startup. Grandpa passed away peacefully 3 months ago. At his funeral, I discovered one last gift he'd left me, a letter written years ago after I'd landed my first major client. "My dearest Olivia, by now you've probably discovered my little trick with the lake house deed. I always knew you'd build something extraordinary, even when others couldn't see it. Success isn't about proving people wrong. It's about proving yourself right. You've done both. The lake house was never about the property. It was about the lessons learned there, the confidence built, the dreams shaped. You understood that. Marcus never did. Keep fishing for opportunities. Keep building your empire. But most importantly, keep being the woman who didn't need anyone's approval to change the world. I'm proud of you, not for what you built, but for how you built it. Love, Grandpa." I folded the letter carefully and placed it in my desk drawer. Outside, the lake sparkled in the afternoon sun, just as it had all those years ago when a young girl sat on the dock, dreaming of building something bigger than anyone could imagine. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't in proving your worth to others, but in proving to yourself that you never needed their validation in the first place. The lake house wasn't just a property. It was a reminder that success comes to those who believe in themselves when no one else will. As for my family, they finally learned what Grandpa knew all along. True power isn't in what you own, but in what you build. And I had built something that would last generations. Looking out at the lake, I smiled. Somewhere, Grandpa was probably doing the same.
The invitation to Bradley Preparatory Academy's emergency fundraising gala sat on my desk, its gold embossing catching the afternoon light of my penthouse office. 30 floors above Manhattan, I ran my fingers over the familiar crest, the same one I'd worn on my blazer for 12 years as a student, back when my parents were on the board instead of desperately trying to save the school from bankruptcy. "Miss Sullivan?" My assistant Sarah appeared in the doorway. "Your mother's called 3 times today about the gala. Should I keep screening her calls?" I smiled, thinking of the irony. 3 years ago, my mother had blocked my number after I chose to become a public school teacher instead of taking over the family's investment firm. Now she was desperately trying to reach me, or rather trying to reach Catherine Chin, the mysterious billionaire tech founder they hoped would save their precious academy. They had no idea that Catherine Chin was actually their disappointment of a daughter, Kate Sullivan. "Let her leave messages," I said, picking up the invitation. "I want to hear how she phrases her desperation." The truth was, I'd been expecting this moment for years. Ever since that final dinner where they'd cut me off completely. "Teachers are nobodies," my mother had declared, her voice sharp with disgust. "No daughter of mine is going to waste her life teaching in some public school." My father hadn't even looked up from his phone. "If you do this, you're on your own. No trust fund, no connections, nothing." They thought they were punishing me. Instead, they gave me the freedom to build something extraordinary. While they thought I was just teaching, I was actually developing an educational technology platform that would revolutionize how students learn. Every frustration I encountered in the classroom became an opportunity for innovation. Every challenge became a solution waiting to be coded. EDU Tech Solutions launched quietly 2 years ago. Within months, it was being called the future of education. Venture capital firms fought for the chance to invest. Tech giants offered billions to buy us out. But I kept my identity hidden, using my Chinese grandmother's maiden name, Qin, and avoiding public appearances. Let everyone picture Catherine Qin as some Silicon Valley wunderkind. The truth was much more satisfying. Your mother's latest message, Sarah read from her tablet. Please, Ms. Qin, Bradley Prep represents everything excellent in education. We desperately need your support to maintain our standards. I laughed softly. Standards. Like the ones that had driven me to teach in public schools in the first place. Did you know, I told Sarah, that Bradley Prep spends more on their annual gala than most public schools spend on their entire arts program? But they can't pay their teachers a living wage. My phone buzzed, a text from my younger brother James. Mom's losing it over this gala. You should see her practicing her pitch to the mysterious Ms. Chen. Still can't believe you're actually teaching in some public school. When are you going to grow up? Poor James. Always following our parents' script perfectly. He had no idea that his failure sister was now worth more than our entire family combined. I walked to the window looking out at the city sprawling below. Somewhere out there, my old classroom at PS 127 was filling with students. I'd kept teaching even after EDU Tech took off, though now I did it anonymously as a substitute. Those kids taught me more about real education than 15 years at Bradley Prep ever had. Miss Sullivan? Sarah appeared again. The Bradley Prep board meeting minutes just came in. You'll want to see this. I took the tablet, scanning the confidential documents. Our sources inside Bradley had been feeding us information for months, painting a picture of spectacular mismanagement. The school had been operating on borrowed money and inflated prestige for years. Look at these salary figures, I pointed out to Sarah. The headmaster makes 7 figures, but they're cutting the teaching staff's health benefits. Classic Bradley. My phone buzzed again, this time with a forwarded email from one of my former colleagues at PS 127. Bradley Prep had just poached their best science teacher with promises of better pay, only to rescind the offer when their latest budget crisis hit. They're still playing the same games, I muttered, remembering how they treated their staff when I was a student. All prestige, no substance. The gala was in 3 days. Bradley's board, led by my parents, would be expecting Catherine Qin to swoop in and save their precious institution. They'd prepared speeches about excellence in education, about maintaining standards, about the importance of tradition. What they didn't know was that I'd been quietly buying up their debt through various shell companies. Every loan they'd taken out to cover their extravagant expenses, every mortgage they'd refinanced to build unnecessary additions, it all belonged to me now. Sarah, I called out, get me everything we have on Bradley's teaching staff, current and former. Especially anyone who left in the last 5 years. Already done, she replied, handing me another tablet. The pattern is pretty clear. They hire young teachers, work them to exhaustion, then replace them when they ask for raises. I nodded, remembering Ms. Patterson, my favorite English teacher. She'd opened my eyes to the power of education, showed me that teaching was about more than test scores and college acceptances. The board had forced her out for suggesting they reduce the headmaster's salary to fund teacher pensions. What's your plan for the gala? Sarah asked, knowing me well enough to see the wheels turning. I picked up the invitation again, running my finger over the embossed crest. I think it's time for Catherine Qin to make her first public appearance. And for Bradley Prep to learn what real education looks like. My phone buzzed one more time, another message from my mother. Miss Qin, I know you value excellence in education. Bradley Prep has been shaping young minds for generations. We just need a small investment, say $50 million, to continue our important work. I set the phone down, smiling. $50 million. That's what they thought they needed to save their sinking ship. They had no idea that their salvation or destruction rested in the hands of the daughter they dismissed as just a teacher. The same daughter who now controlled not just their debt, but the future of education technology itself. Send an RSVP to the gala, I told Sarah. Catherine Chin will be happy to discuss Bradley Prep's future. And Sarah? Make sure they seat me at my parents' table. As I returned to the window, I thought about all the teachers who'd been discarded by institutions like Bradley. All the students who'd been taught that prestige matters more than purpose. All the parents like mine who measured success in dollars rather than impact. In 3 days, they would learn that sometimes the nobody they ignored becomes exactly somebody they need. And that sometimes, the best lesson is taught by the teacher they refuse to value. The night of the gala, Bradley Preparatory Academy's grand ballroom glittered with desperate optimism. Crystal chandeliers cast elegant shadows over Manhattan's elite as they sipped champagne and pretended their children's prestigious education wasn't on the verge of collapse. I adjusted my Chanel dress, worth more than a teacher's yearly salary at Bradley, and watched my mother work the room. She was in her element, air-kissing donors and dropping hints about the mysterious Catherine Chen's imminent arrival. Miss Chen. A young server approached with a glass of champagne. Mrs. Sullivan asked that we serve you our finest vintage. I smiled, taking the glass. My mother had no idea she'd just sent champagne to her disowned daughter. Thank you. And please send my compliments to Mrs. Sullivan. Across the room, I spotted my father deep in conversation with Headmaster Princeton, their faces tight with worry despite their forced smiles. The headmaster's new Rolex caught the light, probably purchased with funds that should have gone to teacher salaries. Catherine. My mother's voice carried across the ballroom as she hurried over. Miss Chin, we're so honored you could join us. The woman who had blocked my number, who had told me teachers were nobodies, who had cut me off without a second thought, now stood before me practically vibrating with anticipation. She didn't recognize me 3 years, and some subtle changes in appearance had seen to that. Mrs. Sullivan, I replied smoothly. Lovely event. Though I can't help but notice there don't seem to be many teachers here. Her smile flickered. Oh well, ticket prices, you understand. But please, let me introduce you to the board. As she led me toward the cluster of Bradley's power players, I caught sight of James entering the ballroom. My brother's latest Instagram post had mocked public school teachers for complaining about their salaries. Try getting a real job, he'd written. Catherine Chin, my father announced as we approached, extending his hand. Your reputation precedes you. We've all been following EduTech's remarkable success. Have you? I asked innocently. Including its work with public schools? Headmaster Princeton jumped in quickly. While public education has its place, surely you understand that institutions like Bradley represent the pinnacle of academic excellence. I sipped my champagne, remembering how he had rejected a teacher's request for basic classroom supplies while approving funds for a new faculty lounge. Tell me, Headmaster, what's the starting salary for your teachers? The question caught him off guard. Well, we offer a competitive package. 35,000, I cut in. While you make $500,000 plus bonuses. Interesting definition of excellence. My mother's carefully applied makeup couldn't hide her frown. Ms. Chin, shall we discuss the investment opportunity? We've prepared a detailed presentation. Actually, I set down my glass. I have a presentation of my own. I nodded to Sarah, who stood ready by the audiovisual controls. The ballroom screens flickered to life, displaying Bradley's financial records, employment histories and board meeting minutes. Over the past decade, I began, my voice carrying across the now silent room, Bradley Prep has systematically undervalued its teachers while maintaining excessive administrative salaries. You've cut classroom budgets while spending millions on cosmetic improvements. You've driven away dedicated educators while protecting your own privileges. These are confidential records, my father sputtered. How did you dash? The same way I acquired your debt, I continued calmly. All of it. Every loan, every mortgage, every line of credit. Bradley Prep doesn't just need a donor. It needs a complete restructuring. Headmaster Princeton stepped forward, his face red. Now see here, Ms. Chin dash. No, I cut him off. You see here. I nodded to Sarah again, and the screens changed to show profiles of former Bradley teachers. These educators left because you valued prestige over teaching. Because you cared more about your country club memberships than their health care. My mother grabbed my arm. Please, we can discuss this privately dash. Like how you privately told your daughter that teachers are nobodies? I turned to face her fully, watching recognition slowly dawn in her eyes. That teaching in a public school was beneath the Sullivan name? The champagne glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the marble floor. Kate. James pushed through the crowd, staring at me in disbelief. Holy shit. Surprise, I smiled. The nobody teacher your daughter became is now the billionaire you're begging to save your school. The ballroom erupted in whispers. Board members who had nodded along when my parents disowned me now stood frozen, champagne forgotten in their hands. This is impossible, my father managed. You're just a teacher. I'm the founder and CEO of EDU Tech Solutions, I corrected him. The company revolutionizing education technology worldwide. And yes, Dad, I'm also just a teacher. Because unlike you, I understand that teaching isn't beneath anyone, it's above almost everything. Headmaster Princeton tried to salvage the situation. Kate, Ms. Sullivan, surely we can discuss this reasonably. The school's reputation is about to change dramatically, I finished for him. Starting with the leadership. I pulled out my tablet, displaying the terms I'd prepared. EDU Tech will acquire Bradley Prep, but with conditions. First, the entire board resigns. Second, administrative salaries will be capped at 4 times the average teacher salary. Third, at least 60% of the budget will go directly to classroom resources and teacher compensation. You can't do this, my father protested weakly. Actually, I can. I own your debt, remember? Either accept these terms or I'll call in the loans tomorrow. Bradley will close its doors before the next semester. My mother sank into a chair, her social status crumbling before her eyes. Why do this to us? I'm not doing this to you, I replied. I'm doing this for every teacher you've looked down on. Every educator you've undervalued. Every person you told wasn't good enough because they chose purpose over prestige. I turned to address the stunned crowd. Bradley Prep will become what it should have been all along. A school that values education over reputation. That values teachers as the professionals they are. James stepped forward, his usual arrogance replaced by calculation. Just come on. We can work something out. Keep it in the family Family. I laughed. You mean the people who blocked my number because I wanted to teach? Who mocked my career choice on social media? That family. I nodded to Sarah, who began distributing documents to the board members. You have until midnight to accept the terms. After that, I call in the loans. And if we refuse? Headmaster Princeton asked, though his voice lacked conviction. Then Bradley closes and I use the buildings to open a teacher training center. Either way, education wins. My mother stood up, tears threatening her perfect makeup. Kate, please. This school is our legacy. No, Mom. This school was your status symbol. But now it's going to be what it always should have been, a place of real learning. As I turned to leave, my father called out. You'd really destroy your own family's reputation? I stopped at the doorway, thinking of all the brilliant teachers I'd worked with in public schools. The dedicated educators who changed lives every day without recognition or reward. You taught me an important lesson when you cut me off, I said. You taught me that real value isn't in a family name or a school's reputation. It's in the impact we have on others. I'm just sorry you had to learn it from just a teacher. The next morning, every major news outlet carried the story. Disowned teacher-turned-tech billionaire acquires elite prep school, revolutionizes education model. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from family members who had suddenly remembered my existence. James sent a dozen texts alternating between apologies and business proposals. My mother left tearful voicemails about family loyalty. I ignored them all, focusing instead on the emails from Bradley's teachers. Their hope and excitement about the changes ahead meant more than any family reconciliation. 1 week later, I stood in my old classroom at PS 127, looking out at the eager faces of my students. They didn't know their substitute teacher was a billionaire, or that I'd just revolutionized one of the city's most prestigious schools. Today's lesson, I announced, is about value. About how success isn't measured by what people think of you, but by what you can do for others. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't proving people wrong, it's proving yourself right. And sometimes the greatest lessons are taught by those everyone else underestimated. Just ask any teacher. We know all about turning nobody into somebody.